Hello guys! This is the fundamental video in my series of videos about hunting flats in Munich. It explains why it's so freaking hard to find rental flat here. And mainly it happened because of two reasons. First one is difference between supply and demand. Unfortunately, German legislation which regulates the building of residential houses was designed when nobody expected such a big demand. Another reason is the legislation which regulates rental services. And this part we will discuss in this video in more detail. So at first, let's state two fundamental things. First one, there are two types of flat rental contracts. Fixed term contract, or befristet in German, or unbefristet, meaning that this is indefinite term contract or unlimited one. Second fundamental thing is that Germany has very much pro-tenant legislation system, meaning that as soon as the tenant gets the contract signed from both sides, he gets much more rights than the landlord. But at first, let's get to first fundamental thing, I mean fixed term rental contract. Usually it's 3, 6 or 12 months. And what is the key thing here? In short-term contract there is no prolongation. It's usually renegotiation, which allows to change anything in the contract. For example, landlords doesn't like you for some reason, or you appear to be a smart ass who is exercising his rights, on landlord's opinion of course, too much, or neighbors are complaining of you, or the other guy is willing to pay more money for your flat. The landlord will simply not renegotiate the contract, or he will simply significantly raise the price for the flats for the next time period. So here the landlord has some kind of protection against if something goes wrong with you. He will simply get rid of you in the end of the contract. I also lived in a fixed term rental apartment when I just came to Germany. Actually, that was my first flat here. And I would say this is a common first step when you just come to Munich for the first time, I mean from abroad. And almost 80% whom I know who relocated to Germany with families started their rental life here from apartments from Mr. Lodge. Yes, this is the biggest German service which provides furnished flats to the newcomers. And they have these short-term contracts. I will tell you my personal experience with Mr. Lodge in my next videos. So I hope you got the point. Getting fixed term rental apartment here in Munich is much more easier because landlord is protected if something goes wrong with you. Now the second type of contracts, I mean indefinite ones or with unlimited term or unbefristet in German. Generally you should remember this word. This is the best friend of immigrants because you will eventually strive to get an unbefristet rental contract, unbefristet job contract and unbefristet visa. This is a very good sign if you have everything unbefristet. And getting back to unlimited rental contracts, it means that landlord cannot terminate this contract without very significant reason. And you, as a tenant, you can do it whenever you want, with 3 months notice period. Or 6 months if you live in flat more than 5 years. And if you want to, and you like the flat, and you like the price, you can live in this flat for ages. And in this case, landlord gets in very unfavorable position. I can describe you a couple of examples from real life, without details, of course. Some tenants simply stopped paying. And after 3 months, after trying to fix the problem verbally, I would say, the landlord took a legal action against them by suing them. The case took 8 months to be considered by the court. And after that, in 3 months, landlord got the decision. And in total, the whole thing lasted for 1.5 years. Yes, bureaucracy in Germany can be very slow thing, especially courts. And you know what? During all this time, the tenant lived in this flat without paying anything. And landlord had to pay all the expenses for the flat maintenance and all expenses for suing process. But the general outcome of this case is that, yes, of course, the tenant had to recuperate all the expenses. but he had to do it within 20 years by paying 120 euro for each month during next 20 years. Another situation happened with my former landlord. His tenant simply packed his things and left the country without informing him. Yes, the tenant lost his deposit of 3,000 euro, but after landlord managed to enter the flat, he found it totally destroyed and he had to spend something like 10,000 euro to make it again in a livable state. And the tenant simply left to his home country and nobody saw him since that. What can I say? Happy end! But coming back to the main idea of this video, and here I wanna briefly cover price increase. The landlord cannot increase the rental price because he wants it. I know there are some specific situations when he can do it, but generally speaking about unlimited contracts, it almost never happens. I personally know people who live in center of Munich in the 3 rooms apartment for only 620 euros. Yes, they got this contract 30 years ago, and those people don't even live there. They live outside Munich in the private house, but they continue to pay for it just to keep a good accommodation in the center of the city, which they use for themselves or for their friends. And I know a lot of such stories. For example, me personally, I've got my second apartment with a price which was 30% lesser than the market price. Why? Because the landlord, he simply kept the same price that he put in the contract with the previous tenant 5 years ago, and he didn't want to raise it. The only thing he asked me for is just continue paying this price, and I don't want to have any problems. And we did so for 4 years, and the landlord was extremely happy. So I think you understand the situation. The landlord actually risks much more when he rents out the flat. And to be a landlord in Germany is not such a bright thing as it may seem. That's why when speaking about unlimited contracts, the landlords investigate you like a freaking insect under the magnifying glass, because he has a very big risk of getting the wrong guy. And if he gets the wrong guy, he may have unlimited problems for unlimited time with unlimited money losses. That's why they want to find the right guy. So, what is the outcome for you as a tenant from all this information? First of all, now you understand the general situation with flat rentals in Munich. And this is already a good thing. You also understand that your income is not always the decisive thing. And you understand that you need to make an impression that you are a right guy for the landlord. This means you should make an impression that you will pay and will not complain. You also need to make an impression that there is a low risk of damaging the property. For example, you don't have fireworks as your hobby and you don't make parties every day and so on. So generally for the landlord, the ideal tenant which doesn't live in his flat, who is only working, hiking and only comes to his flat just to sleep and then go to work again. You also need to make impression that you are a person who can suddenly leave Germany without any traces. And the last thing, you will not exercise your rights too much. For example, in my particular case, I got rejected 2 times when I started to ask questions about some parts of the rental contract. Yes, those parts were pretty much clear, but I just wanted to say that I care and I know German legislation. The outcome was I was rejected on the final stage, meaning that we agreed to everything with landlord. I've got the contract, I needed just to sign it, but eventually I've got rejected because they found some other people. And small disclaimer, by saying make impression, I don't mean don't do it in real life. I mean make such impression until you sign the contract. When you got the contract, is up to you. I don't want to make this video too long. I hope that the main goal is clear. First one, getting fixed term contract in the beginning is much easier, so your strategy should be focused on it. Another one, landlords will be investigating you very carefully before signing the contract, and this is okay, so give them everything that they want to see and even more. In the next videos about hunting flats in Munich on this channel, we will discuss how to make those necessary impressions. I will tell you my stories because I actually changed flats in Munich already 3 times. And I will describe to you the most effective strategy how you can get dream flat in Munich for the reasonable price. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like button, subscribe to this channel for more and smash this bell.